outside, at this exact moment, are dozens and dozens of ICE agents. Donald Trump, you think it's coincidental? No. An imaginable difference. What makes LA great, what makes California great, and what makes the United States of America great is that at our best, we don't tolerate our diversity, we celebrate our diversity. And it's a point of pride, because we're all in this together.
Not believe that this just happened to be a coincidence.
There is no way this was a coincidence. This was widely publicized that the governor and many of our other elected officials were having a press conference here to talk about redistricting, and they decided they were going to come and thumb their nose in front of the governor's face. Why would you do that? That is unbelievably disrespectful. It's a provocative act. They're talking about disorder in Los Angeles, and they are the source of the disorder in Los Angeles right now. This is just completely unacceptable. This is a administration, this is a Customs and Border Patrol that has gone amok. This absolutely has to stop. There was no danger here. There was no need to detain anyone here. And there was certainly no need to have a provocative act right here where the governor is having a press conference.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about Democrats melting down over the fact that, as they believe, the Trump administration sent ICE agents to arrest illegal immigrants outside of Gavin Newsom's big press conference on the Republicans rigging the election, aka Republicans helping to restore democracy in the state of Texas, while at the same time restoring democracy to the balance of power in Congress, because Republicans were cheated out of seats by the census because the census was incorrect. You have illegals being counted as a part of the census, which heavily benefits Democrats. Democrats have gerrymandered the hell out of their states. They have some of the most gerrymandered states in the country, but yet they're boohoo whining and crying about getting a taste of their own medicine.
Californians hate gerrymandering. Yes, we do. Do the American people hate gerrymandering? Yes, we do, and we absolutely should. That's not what this is about. This is about whether we will let the authoritarian in the White House break our democracy while we sit silent.
I thought that was a very effective argument. Talk to us about the timeline here. What is going to happen next week in the California state legislature?
We're going to move with the urgency that the people of California are demanding from us. Tomorrow, we're going to release the maps. Monday, we're going to introduce a constitutional amendment and some implementation language. And by the end of the week, we're going to pass it out of both chambers of the legislature with a 2/3 majority, officially putting it on the ballot so the people of California get the final decision. It's not politicians choosing their boundaries. It's the people deciding if we're going to fight back or roll over.
And that's what I want to talk about, because, again, Democrats are losing their minds over what, again, they see as a show of force outside of this press conference. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Newsom was speaking inside. Dozens of masked federal agents were conducting an immigration enforcement operation outside the building. Was it a coincidence? Agents arrested one person, a vendor selling strawberries.
The Department of Homeland Security says the agents were part of an ongoing operation in downtown Los Angeles. Chris Wolf is live in Little Tokyo with the latest on the controversial operation. Chris?
Yeah, Sharon, Micah, all quiet at this hour, but that was not the case earlier today. Arguably, more people are now focused on what happened outside the governor's news conference than what happened inside. U.S. Border Patrol agents in tactical gear emerged outside the Japanese-American National Museum in Little Tokyo Thursday, creating quite a stir among protesters and politicians in the downtown L.A. area. That's because inside the building, California Governor and Trump rival Gavin Newsom was headlining a rally and news conference.
I know they say don't mess with Texas. Well, don't mess with the great Golden State.
Newsom's gathering had nothing to do with immigration, but rather congressional district mapping. He used the opportunity to blast President Trump and border czar Tom Homan.
Where are we? At Democracy Center. And right outside, at this exact moment, are dozens and dozens of ICE agents.
Yeah. We are restoring democracy, right? That's what they're doing. Again, amazing how Democrats claim they love democracy so much, but yet they like illegals being counted as a part of the census, right? They like the benefits that they get from that. That doesn't seem very democratic. That seems to be diluting the vote, okay, the voice of the American people, which Democrats don't care about, by the way. This is why they rigged the primaries, right? This is why they ignore the American people. They did when they decided to appoint Kamala Harris, right, to make Kamala Harris the nominee after staging the coup against Joe Biden. Democrats have no leg to stand on when talking about democracy. And that's why I think all of this is just so silly to me, especially how Democrats are acting. Because, again, they're hypocrites, okay? You've gerrymandered the hell out of your state. California's already gerrymandered. They want to gerrymander it even more, right? Because Republicans are evening, okay, leveling the playing field, okay? I tried to tell you guys, what Democrats hate the most is leveling the playing field, right? Democrats do not like to fight on a even playing field. They don't like fairness, right? They don't like that at all. This is why they were losing their minds when Elon Musk bought X, right? When he bought X, well, what does that do? That evens the playing field. They left the platform. Liberals said, oh, you're not going to censor conservatives anymore? We're leaving, right? They left. Well, why? Because they know that they lose when it comes to the battle of ideas, right? Liberals know their ideas are not popular. Their ideas are not good, right? Their ideas suck. And when your ideas suck, okay, when you can't win fair and square, what you try to do is that you try to rig the game, right? You try to cheat the game. And that is what Democrats do, right? And they hate it. They hate it when Republicans level the playing field. Like, for example, they hate it when Republicans do voter ID, right? What's wrong with voter ID? Nothing's wrong with voter ID. It's common sense. But Democrats, again, because they like the unfair advantage of not having voter ID, of potentially having illegals and people who aren't supposed to vote voting in our elections because they're going to vote Democrat, make it as easy as possible for people who shouldn't vote to be voting, because they like that advantage. They don't want to fight on an even playing field. They don't want to fight a fair fight. They want Republicans, conservatives, to be handicapped while they have an unfair advantage, right? While they cheat, right? That's what Democrats want. Again, this is why they're so mad about the gerrymandering thing, okay? None of these people are upset about Illinois, which is the most gerrymandered state in the country, right? Or one of the most gerrymandered states in the country. They ran to that state, right? They ran to a state that is a representation of how they think the system should be, right? That's how these Democrats roll, man. That's how they roll.
Donald Trump, you think it's coincidental? No. Donald Trump and his minions, Tom Homan, tough guy, clearly decided, coincidentally or not, that this was a location to advance ICE arrests. Indiscriminate? Perhaps. We'll find out later.
A spokeswoman for the Department of Homeland Security says, quote, our law enforcement operations are about enforcing the law, not about Gavin Newsom. U.S. Customs and Border Protection patrols all areas of Los Angeles every day with over 40 teams on the ground to make L.A. safe, end quote. Other officials say agents target the worst of the worst, including individuals connected to child pornography or criminal gang activity. However, according to witnesses and news footage from the scene in Little Tokyo, federal agents made one arrest, a man driving a produce truck filled with strawberries.
There was no reason in the world for them to come here. They came here in all of their cars to do what? To take somebody who was driving a car and then denying that they took anybody at all. This is a complete provocation. This has nothing to do with safety. In fact, this is the exact opposite of keeping our city safe.
And it's still unclear whether those federal agents were just patrolling the neighborhood or were part of some targeted operation. For now, reporting live in Little Tokyo.
I think they were just trolling, right? They were patrolling the neighborhood. They found an illegal. They arrested one. It just so happened to be going on at the same time as Gavin Newsom boohoo whining crying. Okay, but obviously this triggered the Democrats, right? They don't like that. They don't like the optics of ICE, you know, enforcing the law. They don't like they don't like the optics of law enforcement, right? You notice that? Democrats love the optics of chaos and destruction, right? I mean, think about it. During 2020, during the Roe v. Wade riots, during the pro-Palestine riots, Democrats were much more comfortable with those optics than they are the optics of law enforcement, right? Of law and order. That's the crazy part about it. Okay? So again, it really shows you how the Democrats are basically a party of chaos at this point. So let's go ahead and react to CNN discussing this move here from Gavin Newsom.
Axelrod, how to put this? The posturing, the way that Gavin Newsom was looking at that camera, the way that they built that crowd behind him, the way he made this announcement, I mean, it very much feels like a political campaign speech rally behind this, trying to set himself up as a foil to Donald Trump. Not the first time he's done that. Is it going to succeed?
Well, I don't know about the second. I would say this. Certainly it did look like that. Yes, he seems to be running for president. Yes, there's a constituency within the Democratic Party that wants a muscular response to the president. He's trying to play that role. It's also true that the president did call the governor of Texas to try and find him 5 seats because he is worried about the midterms, and it is changing the rules in the middle of the game. And that's why the California Democrats want to act, and I think that's a different issue.
So, Bakari, if that is a different issue, are Democrats playing this the right way? I mean, there is definitely this bipartisan commission to draw these maps exists for a reason. Democrats have spent a lot of time arguing institutions, norms, do this, play by the rules, and he's basically saying, you know what, we're going to throw that out.
I don't think he's saying throw it out. I'm not the biggest Gavin Newsom cheerleader, but he's being reactionary to, as David said, this president actually going out in the middle of the census. We're not even at a point where you go through redistricting and he's rigging the rules in the middle of the game. I actually was in the legislature in 2010. I actually sat on South Carolina's redistricting committee. I've actually been a part of a case that talked about gerrymandering that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. So I understand this issue intently. And what we're seeing, though, is I've always said that Democrats and Republicans alike, this is the most unsexy issue that will rip apart the fabric of our democracy. It's not necessarily January 6th. It's not necessarily Donald Trump. It's not these things. But redistricting, gerrymandering, how we draw these lines will rip away at the fabric of democracy. And that's what we're seeing right now. If it becomes a free-for-all, that's why the Voting Rights Act was so important. That's why John Roberts' efforts to just pull apart the Voting Rights Act was so important. That's why I believe, and this should be the overarching push, and this should be something that Scott Jennings and Bakari Solis could agree upon. There need to be independent, non-elected commissions that draw these lines.
So do you think Newsom's wrong?
And I mean, I think Newsom's playing politics, but he's playing politics in response to.
Is it good politics for him?
I mean, first of all, the priority for Gavin Newsom is always Gavin Newsom. So is it good politics for Gavin Newsom? I'm assuming there's a poll somewhere that says yes.
It's tricky politics.
Well, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, he is running for president. I wouldn't necessarily call this a muscular response to Trump, right? I think the response is pretty weak, to be honest with you. Democrats, again, don't have any leg to stand on when it comes to this whole, they're changing the rules in the middle of the game. This is what they're saying. Yeah, like Democrats did in 2020, right? Before the 2020 election, changing the rules at the state level in the middle of the game, right before the election because of COVID. Yeah, we've been here before, right? We've been here. Once again, Democrats show their hypocrisy. But, in this case of Gavin Newsom, yeah, what he's trying to do is that he's trying to show that he is the best Democrat to fight, quote unquote, Trumpism, right? To fight Trump, because that's what they made their party about at this point, fighting Trump, right? Like what Gavin Newsom is doing, let's be real, what Gavin Newsom is doing right now doesn't really have anything to do with benefiting his state, right? At the state level, his whole effort on redistricting, okay? He is basically trying to overthrow democracy within his own state to rig the California maps even more, because that's how they play the game. They claim that these panels are independent, but they're not independent, right? Clearly they're partisan, right? If they weren't partisan, then you don't get a map the way that California has their map right now, which is already extremely gerrymandered, right? So they just want the ability to just take the mask off and to say, you know what, screw that. Screw the illusion of independence. we're just going to go ahead and just rig it, right? Because, oh, well, Texas is making their maps more fair towards Republicans, so we got to make our maps more unfair to ensure that we continue to have an advantage, okay? Because that's what this is about ultimately today. It's about power and control, right? There is no principle behind this whatsoever. Democrats just don't like competing on a level playing field. That's what we're seeing here, okay? That's exactly what we're seeing.
Here's why independent redistricting commissions are actually quite popular with California voters. They like this system that they've set up that they've had for about 2 decades or so. It gets different when you say, well, what if we change things to level the playing field with Donald Trump or to fight back against Donald Trump not playing fair? When the polls ask that question, California voters say, wait a second. But it's interesting, like they like what they have. And so over the next couple months, it really will be fascinating as to how it all plays.
This dude is referring to are the polls that basically say that Democrats are satisfied with what they have in California when it comes to redistricting, right? Like they're cool with their map, right? I mean, obviously because they have an advantage, and they don't want to get rid of the independent panel or whatever they use in order to do their maps, right? So Gavin Newsom is literally doing something that the voters don't want, right? The voters do not want what Gavin Newsom is attempting to do, and that's why this could backfire.
I disagree with one thing you said. This is extremely sexy. When we were preparing for the show,
Thank you.
I had to put Axelrod under a fan in the green room. Oh, you should have seen him back there. It was wild. He was getting out of hand.
There's 6 minutes.
I mean, he was showing me.
First of all, it's 4 o'clock. I guess it is happy hour.
You know, the redistricting maps are labeled NSFW on Axelrod. I'm just saying.
54 more minutes of this.
And here I said it would be fine to not have another woman on the panel.
Let me summarize Gavin Newsom's speech today. Gerrymandering is evil. Please vote for my gerrymandering. Of course, he failed to mention that it's already gerrymandered. Republicans get 40% of the vote in California. They have 17% of the congressional seats under a supposed independent redistricting commission. So we're going to further gerrymander the gerrymandering.
By that standard, Scott, Texas is also gerrymandered. So
you want to keep going? How about Illinois?
But here's the issue. I would readily concede it. On a regular census, the legislature there gerrymandered Illinois. That's right. It wasn't in the middle of the game, but
it wasn't in the middle of the game, right? That's the Democrats' excuse at this point, right? You hear this, right? Listen to these people. What this dude is saying, David Axelrod, is that, well, gerrymandering is so bad, it's so terrible, right? I mean, you hear these people at the table talk about how I guess it's the biggest threat to democracy, to the fabric of this country, right? But apparently, they're cool with it when it happens every 10 years, right? That's when they're cool with it. They're cool with it when it happens then. They're not cool with it when it happens more frequently, right? So again, they don't have a problem with gerrymandering. They just have a problem when Republicans choose to do it. They want Republicans to play on their timetable, because I think the whole 10 years thing is arbitrary, right? Especially you talk about the census being wrong, incorrect. Why should we have to wait 10 years to correct something that's wrong? That doesn't seem democratic to me. So let's disenfranchise people for 10 years. That's what Democrats are advocating for, right? So, yeah, when you look at Democrats and their response to all of this, again, it's really all about power and control. It's about the fact that, oh, Republicans are trying to level the playing field, and we can't have that. We can't have that. We don't like them, quote unquote, rigging it in the middle of the game, right? As if Democrats don't do that, right? Democrats are sneaky about their stuff, man. They really are. And that's why I don't like the framing here for the mainstream liberal media, because have they ever had one of these conversations like this, right? When Democrats gerrymander. When Democrats gerrymander, they don't talk about it like this, right? They don't make it out to be a threat to democracy, right? But Republicans do it all of a sudden now, oh my God, it's terrible. Worst thing ever. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.